Thank you so much for joining me again this week. It's part two of the conversation with Esther Tyson, education consultant, educator, and an overcomer. She said it in her own words when you watched part one. But if you think you have heard anything yet in terms of overcoming, you have to catch it in this part, part two. I did mention at the start of the first program about her husband being shot. I didn't tell you that some years later he suffered a stroke. How does she manage? Where does she get her strength from? We're going to hear about that and so much more. Good evening. This is Profile. I am Faye Ellington. Thank you so much for joining us this evening for part two of my conversation on Profile with Esther Tyson. Last week we had got to the place where Ardennes, and we spoke as a student.
Right,
as a student. And when you completed Ardennes, you went directly to the University of the West Indies.
Yes.
Was it Noel Dexter who told you to come up there?
No, he was still at Ardennes.
Ah.
When I left Ardennes. What happened was that was the year when Michael Manley gave boarding grants, full boarding grants. My father told me that he would not be able to afford to pay the university fees, and I should work first, and I was insisted that I was going to go straight to university. In fact, I was the only one out of my class in sixth form who went straight to university. And so I set about getting student loan, getting guarantors, and then found out about boarding grant, and I applied for it and got through, and so away to university
So the boarding grant paid the hall fees. Is that what it did?
It paid almost everything fee. I could buy, when I was on campus, I could buy all my books, recommended texts. It paid the fees and paid hall fees.
So
and
it paid for everything?
Yes, it did.
But it was called boarding grant?
It was called boarding grant. The year after my set, it was cut in half.
So this was 1974, part of the
1974.
legacy of Michael Manley, because he had won the election in 1972. So this will be now 74 when he's pushing for education and all these social changes.
So I was a beneficiary of that.
What was it like
policy.
leaving Ardennes, a church school where you were prim and proper, heading to university in 1974, coming out of the 60s when we had all kinds of interesting revolutionary thoughts that were fomenting there?
In those days, the whole communist ideology was very strong on campus. Trevor Monroe was in the heyday of the Workers' Party of Jamaica, and you had, I lived on Mary Seacole Hall, and I was very appalled, by the way, about some of these girls with all these boys sleeping in their rooms and all of these things. And those Chancellor guys, they were just terrible. They would come over there in the quadrangle and sing. I mean, imagine I get up and they're in the quadrangle singing at the cross, to pure obscenities, you know, Faye. I took a big old rock stone and I fling it right down to the big of them and said, no, stop those type of disgusting type of behavior. And then one of them knew my name and said, Esther Simpson is a whatever. You hear me tell you? Well, the next day I walked straight through Chancellor and dare any one of them look at me, which they didn't because they knew what they did was wrong. Yeah.
Oh, but I wonder what the Chancellor men who are watching this are saying. I'm a Taylorite. Yeah. But when you got there, how did you blend in?
Because I became immediately a part of the InterVarsity Christian Fellowship group on campus. So you had a number of young people who had the same outlook on life that I did. So we just hung together, we did stuff together. Every week we would have Bible studies on hall, and I became a Bible study coordinator, and I became a member of the executive, and we'd have weekly meetings. Thursday nights we'd meet over at Irving Hall. And so we did stuff together.